Good afternoon, Mr. Moderator and fellow town meeting members. It is my pleasure to present to you the 111th annual report to town meeting, along with the recommended operating budget for fiscal year 2022. This is Article 20, appropriate for the fiscal year 2022 operating budget. We are once again meeting in the most unprecedented of times, and I thank you all for your service to the town of Needham. The Finance Committee's recommended budget for fiscal year 2022 fully funds the same level of services for next year and adds some limited new staff and expanded services. This has not been a typical year, and again, we meet at Memorial Park on a Saturday afternoon rather than in Powers Hall on a Monday or a Wednesday evening. The picture behind me is aspirational. I hope we can return to Powers Hall soon. Certainly, the global pandemic caused by COVID-19 has upended all that we do and changed the way that we work, attend school, play sports, celebrate holidays, travel, gather with family, and otherwise go about our daily lives. I am sure we are all hoping to get back to normal as soon as possible, but it will likely be a new normal, or at least for some period of time. The Finance Committee's fiscal year 2022 operating budget funds all anticipated ongoing costs and services within the normal operating budget. Any extraordinary expenses associated with COVID-related expenses may be funded in a future article at Fall Town Meeting 2022, if not covered by CARES Act or FEMA funding, but it will not be included in the matter of this town meeting. As of today, 3 vaccines are available for the adult population in the United States, but no vaccination is now approved for children. Thus, many of the COVID-19 related protocols to ensure student, faculty, and staff safety will likely continue through at least part of fiscal year 2022. All my following comments will be associated with the revenue and expense items of the budget that are found on pages 15 through 19 of the May 2021 special town meeting warrant. I may refer to specific line numbers on the expense items. Further, if you have any questions on the budget that are not addressed within the budget letter dated March 15th, 2021, or in the context of the warrant or this presentation, please feel free to address your questions to the Finance Committee at the Town of Needham website. Now, turning to the summary of revenues. The proposed budget for fiscal year 2022 is based on a total revenue projection of $209.4 million, which represents an increase of $9.8 million or 4.9% greater than fiscal year 2021. As you would expect, Needham has not been immune to the effects of COVID-19, and the fiscal year 2021 budget was revised downward by almost 2% since March 2020 to reflect the situation brought about by COVID-19. Some residents may have lost gainful employment over the last year or taken different positions during the pandemic, and regional employment data has indicated that unemployment in Needham rose from a pre-pandemic level of 1.5% in early March of 2020 to a peak of 15.8% as of June 2020, and has subsequently recovered to approximately 6% today. Fortunately, Needham has always relied more heavily on our own property taxes than outside revenues, and it is better positioned to weather the crisis than other communities. Property taxes account for over 82% of general fund revenue for the fiscal year 2022 budget and are increasing by $7.8 million or over 4.8%. State aid is expected to remain flat for the year, and local excise taxes are also projected to remain at fiscal year 2021 levels after declining significantly in fiscal year 2021 versus fiscal year 2020. State aid accounts for 6.4% of general fund revenue and is projected to be decreased by 2.6%. This budget assumes no increase in school aid and a decrease of 12.5% in unrestricted government aid. The largest component of state aid is Chapter 70 school aid. This aid is based primarily on school enrollment, which did increase significantly with the start of full-day kindergarten. Chapter 70 aid is forecast to remain level from fiscal year 2021 to fiscal year 2022 due to slightly lower overall enrollment, salary increases, and state level uncertainty. Unrestricted general government aid is expected to decrease by $232,000 or 12.5%. Please keep in mind that these estimates of state aid are subject to change as the state budget works its way through the legislature. We will better understand actual revenue by the fall, and we'll be able to make adjustments as needed then. Local receipts, which include motor vehicle excise taxes, hotel and meals taxes, etc., are expected to count for 5.2% of general fund revenue, or 10.8 million versus 11.3 million in fiscal year 2021. These forecasts could prove to be conservative as the economy begins to recover post-pandemic, as local receipts in fiscal year 2020 were 16.1 million. But as a finance committee, we feel it is prudent to be conservative given the inherent uncertainty caused by the pandemic. The budget assumes that 12.5 million of free cash can be applied to fiscal year 2022 needs, an increase of 4.6 million. As you remember, free cash consists of funds that remain at the close of the prior year, such as revenue collections that exceed estimated revenues and expenditures that are lower than appropriations. Free cash can be volatile from year to year, and only that amount of free cash that is considered recurring can be applied to the operating budget. For fiscal year 2022, 3.5 million of free cash is recommended to be allocated to the operating budget. The amount allocated to the fiscal year 2022 operating budget in terms of expenses is 195.8 million and is increasing 5.6 million, or 2.9% over fiscal year 2021. Before we go any further into the specifics of the operating budget, I would like to thank the town manager, the assistant town manager, the town finance department, all the department managers, the school superintendent, and his finance team for the care and attention with which they have developed their respective operating budgets. Mindful of the uncertainty brought about by COVID-19 and the impact that might have on COVID-related expenses and the overall economic outlook, all individuals working in conjunction with the various elected officials and volunteer boards in town, including the school committee and the select board, took great care to produce a budget which provided level funded services, mindful of all costs associated with providing their services. In broad categories, townwide expenses increased by 2.3%, education by 3.7%, and community services increased by 5.1% over fiscal year 2021. The largest portion of the increase is found on line in townwide expenses on line number 6, retirement assessments, which is increasing by 903,000 or 9.5% due to changes in the assumed rate of return from 7.25% to 6.5% and changes in mortality tables. The debt service, line number 2, includes all payments for outstanding debt, obligations for excluded debt, Community Preservation Act debt, and debt funded within the levy. The debt service line is decreasing modestly due to decrease in excluded debt and CPA debt costs, while debt service within the levy is increasing by 3%. Debt service does fluctuate over time due to the borrowing schedules of the town's significant capital project. This line item does not include any debt that may be authorized at this annual or special town meeting. Needham Electric Light and Gas Program. This line item is decreasing by 1.1% or 443,000 due to a decrease in natural gas prices and the estimated electricity consumption for existing buildings. This budget includes a full year at the new fire station 2 and estimates energy at the cost at the public safety complex. Costs of solar energy production is level funded and will be offset by revenue coming into the general fund from lease payments for property used for the solar array and the sale of electricity. Retiree insurance is increasing by 3.2% or $228,000 in fiscal year 2022. The assumed rate of return of OPEB, other post-employment benefits for eligible retirees, was reduced to 6.75% in fiscal year 2021 and is unchanged for fiscal year 2022, but may be revisited in the future. Municipal departments, excluding education. This includes 20 different departments and does not include any wage increases associated with union negotiations, which were ongoing at the time that this budget was constructed. Several of these agreements have settled and funding is subject to approval as part of the special town meeting warrant. To the extent there are approved salary increases for 2022, those amounts will be transferred from the classification, performance, and settlement line in townwide expenses. The select board and the officer of town manager budget is increasing by 10.4% due to the transfer of one position from the planning and community development department into the office of the town manager. The budget also has an increase to fund 2 additional assessment centers used in the human resources department to determine suitability of certain candidates for various positions within the town. The town council budget remains flat as the town hired a new firm to serve as town council. The finance committee has encouraged the select board of the town manager to put that contract out for a competitive bid in the future. The finance department budget increased by 1.7% due to increasing in software licensing, offset by shifting some costs to other departments. Planning and community development department budget is decreasing by 15.6% due to the transfer of that one position to the office of town manager. The public safety category increase of 1.6% is low because the collective bargaining agreements were not settled at the time that the budget was developed. Funds have been provided for in the classification, performance, and settlement line, as previously mentioned. The police department had an overall decrease due to the continuing union negotiations, as well as a reduction of $171,000 in the capital line, equipment line, as the replacement cycle for cruisers was extended. The police department has also filled the position of a new community outreach officer to focus on mental health, substance abuse, and domestic violence, and recommended such a position within their operating budget. The Finance Committee surely recognizes the importance of this initiative, but recommended that the program be funded through a warrant article in the fiscal year 2022 operating budget to give the department more time to assess whether this particular program best addresses their needs in the future. The finance department budget is increasing by 4.2%. Over the last 2 years, staffing within the fire department increased by 8 new firefighters, and this initiative was supported by 3 years of grant funding, which will conclude in fiscal year 2022. Therefore, the grant will cover 35% of their salaries for the first 8 months of this year, and then the operating budget will fill these positions for the remaining 4 months. For fiscal year 2023, the operating budget will need to fund the full cost of these new positions. Total public finance, facilities and public works budget is increasing by 3.1%. The building design and construction department has a decrease of 29.9% and a reduction of 2 people due to the completion of a number of major projects over the last several years. One project manager is being reassigned from the building department to the Department of Public Works Building Maintenance Division to manage construction projects and equipment upgrades within their group. The community service departments include 7 departments that represent a budget of slightly less than 3% of the fiscal year 2022 overall operating budget. The Health and Human Services Department is increasing by 1.3% and has been leading Needham's public health response during the COVID-19 pandemic. All of the extraordinary COVID-related expenses that are not covered by CARES Act or FEMA funding may be the subject of a warrant article during the annual fall town meeting. The Needham Public Library is increasing its budget by 0.9% due to contractual salary increases for the staff. The Finance Committee has recommended deferring their request for an additional reference librarian who would also handle communications as the library assesses their operations when they fully reopen after the pandemic ends. The Park and Recreation budget increased by 23.3% due to costs associated with running the Rosemary Pool Complex. Needham Public Schools. The assessment for the Minuteman Regional High School is an increase of 11.9% and is based on Needham's enrollment at Minuteman, combined with a portion of the Minuteman District's capital costs. The budget for the fiscal year 2022 Needham Public School is $83.6 million, an increase of $2.9 million or 3.6%. The drivers for the operating budget increase are contractual salary increases and additional needs for student support services. 4.7 full-time equivalents will be added to provide services to additional students. The school department has built capacity in recent years to provide support services to students that were once needed to be sent to out-of-district school placements. This has resulted in lower overall out-of-district placements and lower transportation costs. The school department's budget is based on normal operating conditions that are expected post-pandemic. As we speak, students are still returning to school for full-time learning. It is difficult to project with certainty what will be required for fiscal year 2022, and the budget may require additional teachers to operate the remote learning academy for students that can not return to in-person learning. The school department has projected that the cost of running a remote learning academy in a manner similar to which they provided this year would cost an additional $3.2 million, which may be funded by CARES Act funding. These funding requirements are not included in this budget, nor are the COVID-related costs incorporated within the special town warrant. Further capital project financing. At this juncture, the Finance Committee, along with the School Committee, the Select Board, the Superintendent, his Director of Finance, the Town Manager, the Town Director of Finance, the Permanent Public Buildings Committee, and the Community Preservation Committee will collectively be working on a financing plan for 3 major capital projects before the town. These include the renovation of the Mitchell School, the renovation of the Pollard School, and providing an appropriate work environment and community accessibility for the operations of school administration, which now reside at the Emery Grover Building. A beautiful historical building in town for sure, but no longer appropriate for a modern school administration operation in its present form. With the assistance of the Town Director of Finance, representatives from this working group will convene throughout the summer and will strive to develop a capital plan that addresses the needs of the schools and the community for a modern, high quality, and best-in-class education while being mindful of the town's overall debt capacity, debt burden, and long-term implications on the operating budget. We are all collectively planning for the future. The Finance Committee's recommended budget for the fiscal year 2022 provides the funds necessary to sustain the town's high level of services to its residents and is appropriately conservative, cognizant of the fact that the pandemic may be slowing, but it is not over, and our new normal may be with us for some time. The budget demonstrates that fiscal restraint and careful capital planning have enabled the town of Needham to grow its capital base strategically and carefully, positioning Needham well for the future and considerate of the needs of all of the residents within the town. We look forward to continued discussions of the capital planning process, which is before us. And most importantly, on behalf of the entire Finance Committee, I would like to acknowledge and thank the hard work of the town manager, and all town employees, school administration, the directors of finance for the town and schools, all department heads and managers, the planning board, the select board, the school committee, the community preservation committee, and all who have had a role in assisting the Finance Committee with developing the town's fiscal year 2022 budget. Finally, I would like to commend every town employee, town volunteer, and all of you town meeting members and the town moderator for coming together and working so diligently during such an extraordinary time in our history. When they write the books on the global pandemic of 2021, the residents of the town of Needham should be so very proud of what they have accomplished during such a difficult time. Thank you all, and I look forward to seeing you in person, socially distanced, of course, on May 1st for the Needham Special Town Meeting and on May 3rd for the annual town meeting. And as importantly, at some point, and I hope it is in October, I look forward to the sustained group convening in beautiful Powers Hall for our annual fall town meeting. Thank you very much.